everybody, this is Kasey Hinchman, and today I'd like to share a little bit of information about when a seller is able to back out of a transaction. This is a situation that one of my colleagues found themselves in recently when they thought they were all set to purchase a home and the seller decided not to move forward. So when can a seller do this and when can they not? Now, most sellers are motivated to close the sale of their home. So this doesn't come up very often, but in the rare cases where it does come up, it can leave buyers baffled and wondering how is this possible, or does the seller have the right to do this? So let's look at this a little more closely. So one thing that's helpful to understand is kind of the concept of, why would a seller possibly choose not to move forward with closing the sale of their home? The issue predominantly arises when the seller has a contingency for finding a replacement property, but there are other examples. Sometimes a seller might cancel because they just can't find a home as nice as the one they have, or one that works as well for them. A seller might also cancel because they got a higher offer after they were already in contract with a buyer at an agreed upon price. Now, there can be serious ramifications for sellers canceling as well. A seller who turns 180 degrees and decides not to move forward with the sale of their home after there's already an agreement in place can also be facing some kind of murky ethical waters, so to speak, as well, depending on the specifics of their purchase agreement, their agreed upon contract. So let's take a look at the reasons that a seller is able to get out of the sale of their home, cancel an existing escrow, an agreed upon contract. There are predominantly three ways that a seller has to get out of the contract. Now, the first is if the contract hasn't been signed. Perhaps there's a verbal agreement or something like that, but the contract hasn't actually been signed and delivered to the buyer. That's the first reason. A second valid reason that a seller might have to cancel a sale would be if the seller's agent had a contingency clause. So that would be where the seller's agent put a clause in the contract that stipulates that the sale is contingent on the seller finding a home that they like. So if that's not the case, if they haven't been able to find a home that works for them, they are able to cancel for this reason. The third way that a seller can cancel a contract, cancel the sale of their home, is if the buyer does not perform, if contingencies are not released on time, if they don't close on time. Now, here in California, the seller would have to issue a 48-hour notice to perform. And then at that point, 2 days later, if the buyer had not adhered to the contract, had not performed on their end, the seller would have the ability to cancel for that reason. So those are the three valid reasons that a seller has to cancel the sale of their home. So there can be serious consequences if a seller does decide to cancel if they don't have a valid reason for that. The buyer can sue the seller for non-performance and force the sale. The problem with this is that it typically takes years, and most buyers don't want to wait with their deposit in escrow for that process to play out. The second way that a buyer could deal with a seller choosing to cancel when they don't have a valid reason to do so would be to sue them for monetary damages for any costs they've incurred. A lawsuit for costs from the seller could include any expenses incurred by the buyer in the transaction, moving expenses, inspections, and so on. So there are a couple of remedies that a buyer does have in the event that a seller chooses not to move forward when they don't have one of those valid reasons in place. I hope this has been helpful. This is Kasey Hinchman. I'm happy to discuss any of this more with you in detail. Feel free to reach out to me for any of your real estate needs.